Hello and welcome to this Photoshop tutorial. During this tutorial we're going to be doing a number of things. We're going to be looking firstly at the workspace and looking at the layout of Photoshop, and secondly how to interact most efficiently with this layout. So first thing I'd like to do is talk a little bit about what we see on screen here. At the top left here and along the top of the screen we have the menus. So obviously there's many functions within these menus. On the left hand side here we have our toolbar. If we were to double click on the top of the toolbar here, it doubles up, so often useful if you're working with a different size screen. We also have our options bar along the top here, which changes depending on which tool you're working with. So be aware that area is a live section which does change from tool to tool. On the right hand side of the screen here we have our Windows palettes. Windows palettes are also located in the window menu drop down. So we have various things here. So you'll notice that adjustments is ticked and adjustments is open, colour is ticked and colour is open, etc, etc. Next thing I'd like to mention are workspaces. Now workspaces are really useful. Once you really get more experience with Photoshop, it's a great method of working and making your workflow much more streamlined. So if we go into Window again, we can see the second one down is Workspace. In my tutorials I often work with the essentials or the default setting to keep it nice and straightforward. But if you're working with moving image, you might want to work with motion. If you're working with photography, then you have photography here, or graphic design, maybe typography. So if we click on one like photography, you'll see that certain things, especially on the right hand side here, change. Now if I choose something like typography again, you'll see it change. So it brings up the most relevant things which you'll be working with, obviously with typography, etc. So I'm going to return back to Essentials now. Okay, so it brings up these windows here. If you get in a bit of a mess, if things are moved around somewhat, which often happens if you're using a shared computer, it's easy enough to bring it back to its original state. So in Workspace, Essentials is still selected. We go down to Reset Essentials, and it just returns everything back to normal. Now in Photoshop CS6, we'll see on the right hand side here they have a new drop down menu. This is the same menu as we have just been looking at in Window and Workspace. Okay, so it's just a little bit quicker to get to. Now the next thing I'd like to look at are opening new documents and moving things around on screen. So if we go to File and New, so it brings up this window here. You can enter a name for your document or leave it as Untitled 1. You can always change that later. You'll see that there are presets, so we can go into something like international paper. It allows you to change the size of your picture using international sizes. You can change the dimensions of your page or a document here, so you can set them into whatever you like. Obviously they're currently set to A4. It can be measured in various units. We also have the resolution. Now, two different types we're going to look at here. 300 is for print quality, so 300 pixels per inch. So be aware we don't get confused with centimeter. So 300 pixels per inch. If you're doing web-based work, then the standard for screen resolution is 72. But often, with print work, we'll stick to 300. That obviously does vary depending on your printing method, but 300 is a pretty good standard. Colour modes here, so often you'll be working with RGB. If you want to stick to just black and whites, then grayscale just here. Okay, so nice and simple. We're going to leave it as an A4 page here. I'm going to click on Open. Okay, so we have one document. I'm going to do the same again, so we have two documents open. So just opening two here. You'll see that they're both in a tab along the top. Now I can pull these tabs apart. You'll see that we have two documents on screen. If we pick this document up, we can lift it and drop it back on the tab there, and it returns it together. So just very useful to know that you can move images around on screen like this. it can often get quite confusing if you've got a lot of things on screen, and putting them into tabs is a really good method for tidying things up. If we look now in Window and Arrange, we can see a number of options. Now, a really good method of looking at more than one picture at a time. So 2 up horizontally is a good example. We can view both of these images 2 up in a horizontal fashion. So there's lots of other things you do here. Obviously, you can do vertical. You can look at maybe tiling all the images together so you can see them all on the screen at once. Really useful if you've got a really big screen as well. Or we can go to Consolidate All to Tabs, which returns it all back to normal. One last thing is, if you're used to not using in tabs, you can click on Float All in Windows, and that will actually bring them up as little windows like so. So nice and simple. We're going to leave that there for now. I hope that's given you a bit of an idea of how to work with the things that you have on the screen. It's giving you an idea of what certain things are called. I hope you enjoy the tutorial. Thank you very much.